Hey,
Karthik,
Karthik.
can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Josh, Mike, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet
Nice
you
to
as
meet
well.
you. We're so excited for you to join us. We're super excited. So thank you for making the time.
Wonderful. Nice to be able to be here with you guys.
So we're new. We just started this podcast and really we wanted it to be a conversation with great technology leaders to help connect the dots between technical leaders and their executives. And we called it Tech Leaders Podcast for the last two episodes, but then we found out that a reseller out of UK stole our name 5 years ago, and they already have 150
Episodes.
episodes. And so we had to change it from to Tech to Exec. So we told you were going to be on Tech Leaders Podcast. Well, you'd have to do that in the UK. Today, we're going to start the Tech to Exec podcast, and we changed the name. And really, it's to help technical leaders explain solutions and the problems and all of those things to their executives, and also help the executives understand why would someone even be what is concentric AI? Why would someone be interested in a solution like yours, and really to wrap their heads around the problems? And then we're really looking forward to talking about real world problems. So just as an introduction, I'm Mike Linton, the CEO of Valcom, and I'm super excited to meet you, Karthik. So welcome.
Yeah, and I'm Josh Linton. I'm the CIO at Valcom, and just would like to echo what Mike said. And we're excited to have you on board. Why don't you introduce yourself, Karthik, and a little bit about Concentric AI, and we'll get started.
Sounds good. Josh and Mike, nice to be here with you. Karthik Krishnan, I'm the founder and CEO of Concentric AI. Concentric AI is a data security company. It focused on one singular mission, which is to help enterprises operationalize data security with ease and efficiency at a scale that has not been possible prior. So we help enterprises discover, monitor, protect their data in order to satisfy their security and compliance requirements.
So operationalize. So what does that really mean? You're talking to a CEO that is tech challenged. I said stupid when we were preparing for this podcast, and Josh said you cannot use stupid. That none of them are
The
stupid.
same thing I tell my kids. We don't use
Don't
that
say
word.
stupid. So tech
Uh,
challenge. So you said operationalize data security, and I'm like, data. I don't even understand. I kind of do because I did a little bit of research, but explain to somebody that has no idea what that really means. Like, how would you explain that in simpler terms?
Yeah, I'll do that in the form of a story. When I started the company, I was talking to a CISO, and this was when I was at HPE, and he was like, "Hey, do you guys do anything in data security? Because I am struggling to get a good handle on where all of my sensitive data is. And I'm worried that if I get audited today, I'm likely to get fined." And one of the things that he shared just blew my mind. He was like, "I am spending $5 on people for every dollar in solution costs in this area, and I have invested, a crazy amount of people into this. And years later, like, he was 3 years into the journey. It's like 3 years in, like, I'm just not getting the results, even anything remotely close to what I kind of put in." And so when I sort of, in fact, that story ended up being the genesis of why we started the company. When I actually went out to a broader set of professionals, that theme just consistently emerged, which is years of efforts, years of customers having invested in data security, and they were not even able to answer the basic question like, "Okay, can you tell me like where all your sensitive data is?" And one of the CISO's worst nightmare is if you don't know what you have, you can't protect it. I mean, you can't protect what you can't see. And operationalizing data security was a very deliberate term, which was it's not about just giving customers another solution. It's about looking at the whole problem to say, hey, you're spending, if you're spending $1 in a solution and you're spending another $5 in people, that's probably $6 that you're investing into something, and you're not getting value. You're not any safer. You're not any safer from a data breach. You're not. Your data is no less riskier than it was, a few years ago, and yet, here's all of this money that you've spent, And so our mission was, hey, we didn't want to be just one more solution. Like we wanted to be like, we wanted to come in and say, we can operationalize it for you, meaning we can reduce your risk against your data. We can make your data safer. And we can do it for a fraction of the cost that you have been spending so far in people plus technology plus process. And so that's why, operationalizing data security is our mantra, which is it's about eventually closing the gap and protecting your data. So
I hear two things: that you need to know where your data is, and then you need to operationalize it, which means protect it. So explain. So is that, do you do something to protect it, or you just know where it's at? Like, how do you?
yeah, good question. The way we think about this problem is any layer of security, you've got to do you've got to follow the fundamental tenets, which is discover, know what it is you want to protect. Once you've discovered and gotten a good idea of where all of your sensitive data is, then you have to be able to monitor it for risk. You have to understand where the data ends up being at risk, and the risk is being introduced by your users, because your users are creating, modifying, sharing, duplicating, and emailing data all over the place. And so you fundamentally have to get a good handle on, okay, are the right people accessing my sensitive data? And so that becomes sort of the risk monitoring element of being able to monitor and giving customers a risk-oriented view into their environment. And then once you've identified the risk, now the question is, how can you help them remediate and protect that, right? How do you take remedial action that fixes some of those issues and violations that you see, and brings your data back into compliance? And so I think, and then there's a fourth angle, which is, okay, then sometimes you may also need an investigation platform that allows you to do some sort of post forensics and so on. But broadly, the way we think about operationalizing security is discover, but it's not just about discovery. Discovery is a means to eventually being able to help customers understand where some of their sensitive data may be at risk, and then also being able to remediate and reducing risk against that data and preventing data loss.
So what I heard is that our users are our biggest risk, Karthik. Is that right? Yeah.
Users end up
I'm
being yeah, I know you're being facetious here, but yeah, I mean, your users are the fundamental conduit in, right? The way we
yeah.
think about that spectrum is your data is at risk from three dimensions. One, your careless employee, the employee who is doing stuff that, back to the term that you guys use, not I, stupid, doing, stupid stuff, and placing your data at risk. And then the second angle is the compromised user who clicks on a malicious link and ends up getting compromised. And now an attacker has the credentials and has the ability to roam around and masquerade as the user. And the third thing is the malicious insider, which, the user gets disgruntled and wants to do something, right? Now, generally, 80% of the threats are usually the careless employee, the user who's doing, stupid stuff and placing your data at risk. And then, and then some of it is, and then another 10-15% is from your compromised users. And then the remaining is malicious users. But across the spectrum, the common theme is the user is the conduit in for potential, data exfiltration and a data breach.
I loved what you said as you talked about discovery and monitoring risk, because it really is, we'd like to think, and I go through and do our security assessment questionnaires and these things that kind of everybody does. And we're a relatively small company, but always these questions of, do you know where your data is? And they don't ask it that clearly. It's a little bit, you kind of have to be like, I mostly do. But I think to your point, we want to think that our users are doing the right things and making the right choices, but it's not the best way. We need something better, right? And I think that that's what I like about this of discovering and then monitoring that, knowing what's going on, where it's going, and what's happening to the data. And so I really resonate with kind of this operationalizing and being able, the whole stack of discovering, monitoring, and remediating, because I think in the past we've had solutions that can do one or the other, and that can be a real challenge. So for us, this is something even relatively, we're not a huge company, but even we have some of these needs, and I think that's a critical piece of this, right? And really a core business problem that we can kind of see that you're trying to solve. And so, I think it's really interesting to continue to look down those paths and really do that. So
you said you wanted to build something different, and you did, which I think is awesome. As an entrepreneur, as somebody that sees a problem and goes and solves that, I just have a lot of respect and awe for people that can do that. But what'd you build different? Like, what went through your mind? Like, walk us through the journey of, we need this problem, it's not solved effectively. Walk us through that and how you're different.
I think early on, we honed in on the fact that the reason all of this is such a giant mess is the discovery process is broken. And so consequently, because traditionally, if you look at traditional data leakage prevention tools and data governance tools, for the most part, they're all like, rules and pattern-based approaches to understanding data. And I like to use the simple analogy. Like if I give you, Mike, a document, and I told you, hey, does this document have social security numbers in it? You as a human would 100% be able to tell me whether there's a social security number in there or not, even though it can have the same pattern. Like it could be like 600232345. But you can figure out if that is a social security number or if it is a PG&E light pole number masquerading as a social security number. And the reason you can do that is because you would be looking at the document as a human and trying to make sense of, okay, what is this document talking about? Does this number make sense as a social security number in the context of what I'm looking at? And so you're using the broader context of the document, and the sort of inferences that you're deriving from that to additionally layer on top of the specific numbers that you see to figure out if something is a social security number or not. Whereas machines do the complete opposite, because machines in the data security world have been trained to go look for a 9-digit number. It hasn't mattered whether that 9-digit number is a social security number or it's not. And so they've often lacked the context necessary. And so when we started the company, back to your point, the problem was clear. Then the question that we set out to figure out is, okay, are there any new technologies, innovative technologies that have emerged that will allow us to solve this? Now, this was 2019. My co-founder Madhu, who was running the internal data science program at Schwab, and I successfully convinced to come join me on this journey, had been
Great
looking
job.
at transformers and deep learning, and he said, "Hey, we can probably use language models." And by the way, this is 3 years before ChatGPT. So, it's not like these were household terms at that time. He said, hey, maybe we can use language models to understand data, right? So we can look at a document and say, okay, this is a resume, or this is a contract, or this is a wire transfer document. And so when we're actually looking at that 9-digit number, we can actually ascertain if it's actually a social security number or a PII information, and then place it within the context of what we're looking at. And so at that point, we set out to build our own language models, which is really what we did, to build this sort of context. So when we look at data, we're not just looking for a pattern or a rule or a regex, we're actually using language models to semantically understand data. And so that's what gives us, the accuracy and the precision, but also it gives you the comprehensive ability to identify all forms of sensitive data, everything from PII, PCI, PHI data to intellectual property to financial data to business confidential data like contracts and M&As and term sheets. And so it's really that. In fact, we have 7 patents in this area where we've custom built models just specifically for this use case. And so today, we have more than 1,500 models today supporting 300 plus thematic categories of data. And all of that was really to help automate the discovery process. Now, once we solved that extremely well, we were then able to add more value for customers who then ask us, okay, I've discovered my data with amazing precision. Now what? Now we say, okay, we can monitor it for risk, and we can actually go and fix these issues for you. So we're reducing the risk against that data. But a lot of the uniqueness starts with the autonomous nature of understanding data with context. And then we've layered on additional capabilities like risk monitoring and helping understand very autonomously sort of where data may be at risk from inappropriate permissioning or data sitting in a location that you least expect to find it, and then helping sort of remediate that.
So you're different by having the AI understand the context and therefore you can pinpoint sensitive data. Is that, I mean, that's the first step, and then you've layered on so much more value. That is different than what others are doing, where they're like write a rule, like the old antiviruses, right?
Correct,
Versus
including many new recent AI companies that are AI companies, but under the hood, it's a rule engine masquerading as AI. And so that's correct. So it's actually a fundamentally transformative way to think about data discovery that has allowed us to provide a more effective risk monitoring and an even more effective risk remediation engine. And so everything gets layered on top of a foundation that is fairly solid and differentiated.
Yeah, certainly seems to provide a higher level of confidence in the discovery, especially in that discovery phase of, are these for Social Security numbers, are these really Social Security numbers? I think that's a huge win when it comes to evaluating your own data security.
Yeah, it's kind of a mindset shift as well, right? I mean, if you talk to any security analyst, they want to be fixing risk. They want to be investigating real incidents, not wasting their time. And even for their own calibrating their own success, it's like, okay, how many real incidents did you end up investigating? Versus what they've traditionally been doing, which is figuring out if something is legitimate or if this is just a wild goose chase, right? And so you're essentially shifting even their focus to the kinds of things that they want, which is to act on meaningful risk insights that you're providing, so they can actually go and investigate and triage and take action versus traditionally, just literally cleaning up the mess that these tools have spewed out. So.
now, did I hear you say that so many AI companies are just masquerading as AI? And is that like builder AI type stuff? They say it's AI, but it's really not. Or explain. I think that could be a fun conversation as far as how do you help an executive understand or ask the right questions maybe to their IT leaders of, is this AI? Is this not AI? Or what does it matter? What's the end result? Because you've clearly turned AI into a phenomenal, powerful solution versus, hey, I'm just putting AI because if it says AI on it, then they sign bigger checks or they sign the check. Help me differentiate how you would talk to an executive about that.
The reality is it should not matter at all, right? AI is a means to an end. And so if you're using AI as a shock and awe exercise to somehow impress somebody, you're probably doing it wrong. At the end of the day, we're all here to solve problems. So I almost always, when I'm talking to an exec, the point I try to make is, look, we use language models and so on, and I try to explain it at the first level just so they understand how we're differentiated, right? But at the end of the day, my parting line to all of them is, don't believe a word I just said, right? Go take my product for a spin within your environment, which is also why we've made the proof of concept so straightforward. Like, it literally takes you 10 minutes to stand up one of our solutions within a customer environment. And within a few days, we can actually come back and give them a representative view into their environment and what the AI could have done for them, right? And without them having done any work within their environment. But because that's really the only way that uh, security, there's 3,500 security vendors. And so even if you say you cure cancer, if it turns out that you are so difficult to deploy, there's no CISO who's going to be interested. They don't care. Like, there's not enough bandwidth in the day. And so you have to make the ability to be able to prove out your technology extremely straightforward so they can see it for themselves. And so the way we end up winning is if you take us for a spin, you can see relative to anybody else, just the range and depth of context that we can provide, the meaningful risk insights that we can provide, and how easy we make it to not waste your time to actually materially bring the risk down. And so that becomes very, very easy for you to be able to see. And so the AI explanation is often at a very high level, just so that they know that they're not wasting their time with us. But at the end of the day, the proof is in what your product can do for them and how easy you make it for them to be able to see value.
Mike, you and I before were talking a little bit about a story that you had heard and we were trying to tell us a little bit about that. We were wondering if Concentric would have helped this kind of interesting situation.
So do you help, and how would you help a malicious actor? I heard about a Brazilian software company that was connected to all the banks there, and IT, I think, worker there walks out of the office, gets approached by hackers. Hackers say, "We'll give you $2,700 to give us your credentials." They give the hackers the credentials. The hackers steal 140 million from the network of banks. Is that something that, I think that maybe not that specific one, if you if yours would help with that situation, then yes, let's use that specific one. But how do you help with malicious people that are like, yeah,
Yeah.
I can be
So
bribed out of this?
look, I think I'll give you a multi-layered response. Back to
Just like security, you're given a multi-layered response. I mean, you're
that's
definitely a
right.
security
That's right.
person.
How it should be.
Response in depth.
Yeah, response in depth. I like that.
We're gonna put that. We're gonna make some about that. But I'll let you answer before I say anything.
Yeah. So look, the first thing is today, for the most part, data environments for most customers are extremely wide open, which means I'll give you a simple example. Like let's say you have a 500-person hedge fund company. Let's say you've got 50 traders who need access to sensitive information. For the most part today, enterprises do not even have their basic environments locked down to where you can ensure that if you've got sensitive research data, that only the traders have access to that information. And so, and people think of that and say, oh yeah, it's obvious, but the risk there is enormous, because now if you have research data that all 500 people can access because it's available in some locations that you least expect to find it, that attacker now has to compromise any one of those 500 people, and now they have access to that information. Now you compare that to if they had to only compromise, if they had to compromise if only the 50 traders had access to information, now it's become exponentially harder, right? For them to essentially be able to go compromise the credentials of one of those people from a privilege standpoint who have access to that information. So least privileged data governance is one of the most foundational things that any enterprise can do to make sure that you are bringing your risk down substantially compared to anything that is traditionally possible. So the first thing you have to do is get an understanding of your environment. So you're actually buttoning down access on an as needed basis before you even do anything, right? So you got to go, and that gives you like an exponential ROI, because you have made, because the name of the game at the end of the day from an attacker standpoint is, yeah, you can be right 99 times, they have to be right once, but you can make it a lot harder, right? Because at the end of the day, the goal is to raise the costs so significantly that it makes it, it acts as a deterrent for them to come after your environment. So the first thing that we tell customers is go button down your environment, make sure that the information is in the right locations, the right sets of people have access to it. Now, if you've done that, the second thing that you can do is you can monitor your environments for not just permissions governance, which is what we would have done in the first place, but the second part is activity analytics, right? Understanding where there's abnormal activity, but not just, user came in at 2 a.m. and okay, so what? Like if they accessed a cat video, who cares, right? So is it, are they accessing sensitive data of interest? And so then being able to monitor that against the data that you care about, and then being able to take, remedial action and preventing that. Now, this entire spectrum, the common theme is, the first thing is you have to inventory all of your data to understand the data that you should really care about. And then you start with permissions, you take care of that. Then you get into activity monitoring and you identify what's happening. And then as you layer this in, you've made it substantially harder for an attacker to come after your data. Because at the end of the day, the reason we focus on this problem is whether it's malware, whether it's ransomware, everybody is after your data. They're not after your laptops, they're not after your network, they're after the sensitive data so they can do something with it. And so reducing the risk against that data in this sort of a layered approach is, in our view, the only way to do it.
I guess we could spend a lot of time talking about how you see abnormal behavior and how that alerts people, but that seems to be the future and what you've built to help protect against some of those malicious actors, which I think
you said it earlier on that the discovery portion of this is broken. As you've been talking, I've been thinking back, why haven't we done this before? Why haven't we solved some of these problems? And I think it is that discovery piece has been so difficult to really understand what we have and where it is in order to properly protect it. So certainly, as I'm thinking about what executive leaders and tech leaders really want to know or should know, is you've got to understand your data first in order to go do some of these other things to protect it, right? And such a huge part of protecting and data security. So
Don't we hear every week that some database that was on Amazon gets leaked? I mean, or gets discovered and people didn't even know where it's at. Is that
Yeah, and I'll give you some interesting statistics on that. There was a recent mortgage company. I won't name them, but they lost millions of records. And their initial cost, the first week of a post-breach cleanup, was $50 million, and they were expecting it by the time they were done to be north of $200 million. And if you look at that as a cost, that can end up being anywhere from $30 to $50 to $100 per record for a post-breach cleanup. If the data that we have seen from our customers, like we can usually proactively clean up risk against our data for less than a cent per record. And so, the old adage, prevention is better than cure. It's the exact same thing. It's like, if you take preventative steps, you can often end up in a situation where you are spending orders of magnitude less than what you would have to do in a reactive scenario post incident, because at that point you are completely in like just recovery mode, right? You have to get your incident response people on board. You have to figure out what happened. You got to go recover your data. And so and a lot of it is because the data remains an extremely vulnerable threat surface. And so for a lot of our customers, it's like a no-brainer, right? We come in, we've operationalized data security for hundreds of millions of records for less than a cent per record. And they're like, okay, this is an expense that compared to what I would face on the other end is an absolute no-brainer. So, back to your point, like this is real world data that we have seen. So
I was going to ask you what you would tell executives, just you could tell them anything because we have like 5 of them in the whole world listening to this podcast so far. You could tell all of them, but really, when you say it's gonna get bigger because you're on it, by the way, so thank you.
thank
and
you.
and we're just getting started. But when you say prevention is better than cure, which we've all heard, but orders of magnitude less expensive is how we need to pitch that. It is orders of magnitude less expensive to prevent. And that's what we need people to hear and understand. And we need to give that verbiage and that understanding to all the IT leaders that we're working with. Because if they could just go to the executive, so Josh sometimes comes and pitches me a software. Um, Even though we're brothers, he has to ask me and I have to ask him when we buy stuff, and we run the company. So he comes and pitches me and I'm like, I don't know, I don't care. But if he said, Mike, prevention is orders of magnitude less than the cure as far as cost, I think I would just be like, whatever.
I can
Yeah.
say you can spend $100,000 today or $20 million later.
That would work.
It's easy.
But
That
I
would
won't
work.
believe you if it's that
No.
much.
I gotta have proof.
And I'll give you another data point. One of our customers spent $100,000 on us. We saved them between $250,000 and $500,000 in cyber liability insurance just by them demonstrating that they had a data security solution in place. Their insurance premiums went down between 2.5 and 5x what they spent on.
Wow.
So we literally paid for our solution and then some, just on that one dimension alone, not to mention the other dimensions of all of our data cleanup and so on that we've done for them.
That's
So
super
we need to go.
interesting to me.
You
Sorry,
go.
just in thinking, and maybe we're thinking the same thing, Mike, but there are very few. One of the challenges I think I've felt with cybersecurity products is that they are an in case kind of a thing. We buy them and we hope nothing happens, and we're happy that we spent the money and nothing happened a little bit, right? But what a great story to be able to say, we're protecting you in case something happens, but we're also saving you money even before it happens, which that is not a story that most security products can tell. We're typically having to tell the story of, trust us, you want this, because if you don't have it, it will be worse. But there's not a lot of savings until the breach comes, right? Or until you prove you didn't have the breach. What a great thing to consider when it comes to cybersecurity insurance. So,
Karthik, thank you so much. The time you spent and educating us and teaching us, I really enjoyed very much. Also, on behalf of all of Valcom, thank you for the partnership. We found your team to be great. So you have a great team, and they're very interactive with us, and they're helping us as we've onboard you on as a vendor. Also, your message is resonating with our clients, and so thank you. And thank you for your insight. Thank you for building a company that solves a problem and that is needed in this space. And we just really appreciate you joining us and for your time.
Thank you, Mike and Josh, for having me. Really appreciate it. Thank you for building a great business and for being a great partner for us. We're looking forward to continuing to build on the partnership and helping jointly go to market. So again, thank you very much for having me on board today.